Productivity influencers have convinced us that we need more software features, more automation, more integrations, and more AI. But what if we actually need less? What if the solution isn't finding a better app, but actually learning to use the ones that we already have? I used to think that I needed the perfect productivity system. You know, the kind of databases and color coordinated tags and complex workflows, somehow making me a more successful and a more productive person. And for years, I jumped between Notion and Evernote and Obsidian and loads of others, trying to curate the perfect system. And then inevitably, I just stopped using it. And the irony wasn't lost on me that I was actually spending more time trying to be a productive person than I was actually being productive. So I deleted everything and I went back to Apple Notes, the app that's been sat on my phone the entire time. The one that I thought was too basic and too boring and too simple. And here's what I've learned. Apple Notes isn't just a silly little app that comes with your iPhone. Especially with the latest few iOS updates, it's actually really powerful. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how to use Apple Notes properly, because I actually think loads of people are sleeping on this app. And once you understand how to use it properly, I think you're going to ditch every other productivity system that you've ever seen online. This video is sponsored by the like button. Click it below to find out more. When you open Notes, you're going to land on your folder view. And as you can see here, I used to use this system where I split up and categorize all my notes into kind of like these 4 main areas. And then once a week on a Sunday evening, I would sit through all the notes I created that week and sort through them, move them from the default notes folder manually into each of these correct areas. Now, it was a bit of a ritual and I thought I was being really organized. But it turns out that I was just creating busy work that made me feel productive without actually being productive. We're going to circle back to folders in a bit because there's a much better way to do this. But first, let's talk about creating notes and using notes, because even some of the basic features are more powerful than most people realize. So let's create a new note, and we're going to call this YouTube. Now, the first thing you're going to see is that there is this toolbar floating above the keyboard. And there's a whole plethora of options in here. Most people probably know about the formatting options, which is where you can change different heading types. You can have your bold, italic, underline, etc. But you can actually find some of these options in a quicker way by simply swiping across this toolbar. So here's where we find all of our bold, etc. options. Here's where we find different indent options. Now, headers are really cool because they allow you to break up your note into different categories. So let's say we call this heading 1, and we're going to make this a heading. And then let's say this is filled with information, but for now I'll just put loads of line breaks in. And then further down the note, we're going to create heading 2. Okay, and imagine this keeps going and going and going. Now, I don't want to have to endlessly scroll to find my second heading. So once you've actually created either a title, a heading, or a subheading, you can tap to the left of that heading and you can collapse it. And you can do that with multiple different headings. There's no text under this one, so let's put some text in there. And you can then collapse heading 2. And this allows you to, instead of having a really long list with endless scrolling to try and find your information, you can just collapse and expand the headings as you need. Next, I want to talk about highlighting, because once you select some text, you can click this highlighter icon and it changes the color. Now, if you tap and hold, you can change the particular color that you want to reference or change it to. And you can do this with multiple bits of text. And I love to use this when planning videos. Orange for things I'm going to say on an A-roll. Blue for things of facts I need to double check. I can use green for things that I'm going to do in voiceover. It just allows me to visually quickly scan through my script and know what I need to say and do at each point of my recording process. Now I want to talk about something for everyday use. There's this check marks button here, and this brings up a checklist of things that you can then create for things you need. Shopping lists, to-do lists, packing lists, whatever you need. So let's say I'm going to make a shopping list. So I'm going to add some grapes, and I'm going to add some apples, and I'm going to add milk, and I'm going to add bread. Okay? Then when I get to the shop, I can tick the things that I've picked up and I've put in the trolley. And I can untick them for next time. Now, this is okay when there's only 4 options, but what if you have a really long shopping list? You might want to break it up into different headings. You can actually, if I create a new one up here and call it fruit, and then if I swipe right on everything I want to be indented under fruit, that will happen. Grapes, apples. If I want to unindent it, I can swipe back left. And tapping the top parent checklist won't automatically tick everything underneath it, but it allows you to quickly reference a very long list, knowing that you only have to look at the very left-hand side checklist rather than the entire list. Now, one of the things you might be wondering is when I tap these, they don't reorder. I'd love everything I haven't got to go to the top of the list. Now that's possible. In order to turn that on, you need to go to the Settings app on your iPhone. You need to go under the Notes section. You need to scroll down and go to Sort Ticked Items. And I currently have it set to manually, turn that to automatic. And when we go back, if I tap milk, bread goes to the top because bread is next because it's unchecked. Now let's talk about tables, because it's one of those features that seems really basic until you actually start using it. Tap this table icon and you get a basic 2x2 table. You can tap the 3 dots for extra rows or delete rows, and tap the 3 dots at the top for an add a column or remove a column. So you could, for example, use these tables for meal planning. You could put Monday through to Sunday across the top, and you could put breakfast, lunch and dinner down the side, and then fill it in each day with what you want to eat. Or you could maybe use it for task management. You could have columns for tasks and due dates and priorities and statuses. And then you've got a really simple project tracker right inside your Notes app. Now, tables and Apple Notes aren't as powerful as, say, a proper spreadsheet. You can't manually resize columns, you can't merge cells together. And for some reason, I don't think the highlighting seems to work inside of table cells. But for basic organization, it works really well. And they're right here. There's no need to open a separate app. All right, let's talk about one of my favorite features. And it's something that most people don't even realize their phone can do, but I use it all of the time. And that is attachments, and specifically scanning text or scanning documents. So I have a book here, okay? We're going to open up this book on a random page. And on my iPhone, I'm going to hit scan text, and it's going to come up with the camera. So you might not be able to see this in the camera shot. I'll line this up to my book, and I'm going to hit insert. And now, everything that was on that page that the camera picked up has been inserted as text into my Apple Note. I can then edit this as much as I want, and I've digitized what was in the book. Now, let's say you don't want all of the text inside the Apple Note. Instead of then, go back into here, instead of clicking scan text, go scan documents. And I'm going to do the same again. You line it up with the book, and then what happens is your iPhone basically takes a picture of what it saw. And you go, okay, well that's all right, it's not a great picture, but what happens if I want to pull something out of this? Well, your iPhone now has scanned all of this text and is now searchable in the note search. So let's pick a word. So harder stance as a phrase, okay? If we go back and we do a search and we say harder stance, there's an attachment in my YouTube note straight away to harder stance. Not only has it picked it up from the text, but it's also then picked it up from this screenshot as well. This is one of those features that makes you really appreciate the engineering and the thinking that went into Apple Notes. And it means you don't need a separate scanning app. This one is built in and it just works. Okay, let's talk about one of the biggest additions that came in iOS 18, and that's call recording and transcription. So again, under attachments, we can hit record audio. Now, if I hit the record button, it's going to start capturing in real time everything I'm saying. We can pause, resume, and when you're done, we just hit stop. And this recording is going to save straight into your note. Now, you will need an iPhone 12 or later, and once you do that, you get the transcription. So as I'm recording this right now, it's generating a text version of what I'm saying. So let's stop this and hit done. This is going to appear as a little attachment in your Apple Note, and I can tap on here, and I can scroll through the live transcription. Now, as part of Apple Intelligence, which comes with iPhone 15 Pro or later iPhones, you can also summarize this. So I can hit the summarize button and it's going to then give me a short summary. Now, of course, I didn't have a lot of text to summarize, so this might not be useful in this example. But imagine that you have an interview with somebody or you want to record a conversation. You set your phone down, you do an audio recording and you just talk for an hour. You can come back later and you can summarize everything that you've just said right here in your Apple Note. And the summary even appears here in this little snippet on the note. Your phone can also record phone calls, and those recordings will get saved directly into Notes with the full transcription. Now, it's going to announce to everybody on the call that it is being recorded so nobody gets caught out, but it's incredibly useful for those important conversations that you want to reference later. Now let's talk about Math Notes. This was introduced in iOS 18 and it allows you to do mathematical equations and expressions, and also use variables to do things like day-to-day budget planning or plan your holiday or map out how you're going to remodel your home and all the costs associated with it. Let me show you. Apple Notes has been integrated with the Calendar app, and what that means is you can now do calculations right inside Notes. So we can do math equations, for example. You can add an equal sign and it will automatically solve it. So let's just make up a really hard equation. Let's just hit a load of random numbers. So that number times by, pick another random number, hit equals, automatically populated for you. Now you can even do the same for minus, subtraction, etc. And you can even get really complicated if you manage to type in like an equation, like a quadratic equation, something like that. It will also work that out. But where it gets really cool is that you can use variables. So let's say I want to calculate how much I spent on a night out. So I'm going to say there was dinner and it was, I'm going to use pounds, it was £160. And then we went to the movies and that came to £76. And then we had to pay for parking, and parking came to £10, okay? Now I want to know how much that cost and then divide it by, let's say 4, because I'm going to split the cost with everybody. That I went with, okay? So I could say, well, dinner, add movies, add parking, equals £246. And then I want to take that £246, type that in, divide by 4, £61.50. Really cool. And if you have lots of variables, you can create lots of different equations, build that into tables as well. And we're kind of building Excel a little bit, but it's straight in your Apple Notes. All right, remember at the start when I showed you my old manual way of doing things and organizing notes with folders in Apple Notes? Let me show you the new way, and that's smart folders. Now, smart folders are honestly the feature that changed everything for me, because they now automatically sort your notes based on filters that you can set up. So instead of me manually moving notes around, the system's going to do it for me. Let me show you how it works. So if we go back in Apple Notes to the start and we hit new folder, we can give it a name. I'm going to call this YouTube, and I'm going to make it into a smart folder. Now I'm presented options of how I want to categorize any notes to put in this smart folder. So for example, we can create tags. So I can say any note with the tag YouTube, I want to automatically get sorted into my YouTube smart folder. Now it's come up with one because I've actually got a note in here before. You can see I've used the hash, a bit like a hashtag on social media, and put YouTube, and because I put that in a note already, it's automatically added to that smart folder I just created. We can do that with a new note. So let's say new note, and before I put anything else in, I'm going to use hash, and you can see your keyboard's going to come up with your existing tags if you want YouTube. Now, if I go back to my smart folder, there's 2 notes in it. This is really, really cool. Now, you don't have to just use tags. As you can see, if we go back into edit, there's all sorts of different options. Has the note been shared? Does it have attachments? Was it recently edited? Does it have checklists? There's a whole lot of options, and you can combine filters. So I could create a smart folder that shows me notes with the YouTube tag, that also has attachments that were edited in the last week. And then I can change the filter from, it can hit all of those filters or it can hit any of them. You can customize this as much as you want. And this is what replaced my system of manually moving notes into different folders every week. And that is the real magic of smart folders. Never again do I have to think about manually sorting my notes. They are automatically done for me based on the categories and the variables that we set. It's a system now that works for me rather than me working for it. Right, let me show you a few more features that save time in ways that you probably don't realize until you start using them. First of all is Quick Note. This is mostly useful on iPads and Macs, but you can also do it on an iPhone. On your iPad, if you have an Apple Pencil, you can swipe up with the pencil from the bottom right hand corner and you instantly create a new note. On your Mac, you can press Function Q and that also does the same. But on iPhone, you can add the Quick Note button to the control center. So I've added that here. If I tap this button from anywhere I am on my phone in the control center, it brings up a Quick Note. Now, Quick Notes are saved into a dedicated folder that then sync across all your devices. And it's designed to quickly capture without worrying about where it should go. You have a thought, you need to get it down, you're going to organize it later if you need to. Another cool function is note pinning. So let's say you've got notes that you want to reference all the time, but you don't want to have to keep finding them. If you tap a note, you can actually pin it to the top and it goes into a pin section. You can also go through your flat list of notes. You can swipe right and find the pin button. And alternatively, you can swipe left for lots more options, including share. Share is really cool because if you have a note that you want to collaborate with someone else with, and they also have an iCloud account, you can share it with them. And then both of you can add things to that note in real time at the same time, and it's synced to both your devices. The final thing you can do is you can lock a note so no one else can see it. So if you create a new note and hit the 3 dots and go lock, you have the option to use your iPhone passcode as its password, or you can create a separate password as well if someone else perhaps knows your iPhone password. You can also set up automations using the Shortcuts app. This is going to allow you to create a new note every 9 AM so you can do your morning routine and write down what you want to accomplish for the day. Or you want to create meeting notes for every time that you get to a location. The Shortcuts app is going to give you a lot of automation and a lot of power with Apple Notes if you fancy setting that up. There's also widgets which you can have on your Mac, your iPad and your iPhone. This allows you to have quick access to a specific note or specific folder of notes directly from your home screen or your desktop or your device. Apple Notes isn't trying to be perfect at everything. It isn't going to replace Notion for your databases. It isn't going to be the perfect project management system, but it's going to be a really good note-taking app with lots of powerful features built for the Apple ecosystem. Because the best system isn't the most powerful, it's the one you actually use. Take care.